Hello there, one and all. Welcome to Slapendipity Hobos of Happy Slappy Town. I am Eric, who you may call Eric, and with me is Gibby, who you may call Devin, but you won't get to hear him quite yet. Gibby, Devin, I have an important question for you. Now,
I can talk
people
now.
at home.
Good.
Wait, what?
Can I talk now?
Huh? No.
Okay. Shh. I'll be quiet. I'll go over here.
I have so much power.
I'm all the way over here now.
Oh no. Okay. I was told this question, and I was like, wow, what a weird question. And I think maybe we've talked about it before, like off the podcast, but I think it's also just a great date question. It's a great getting to know you question when you meet a new person. I think it's so cool and fun. So are you ready for the question?
What?
Are you ready for the question?
I can't hear you.
Are you ready?
Sorry, I just came back to my microphone. Am I allowed to talk now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
Are you ready for the question? The
I'm ready
question
for
is, if you had to describe yourself as a body of water, what would you pick?
Okay, so we talked about this with the dating because the girl asked you, and you said like a specific lake, and then she said just like the ocean, and you're like, oh, that seems like it's not
Wait a minute.
part of the question.
Oh.
What?
I forgot we already did this then.
Well, I don't think you may have answered it. I don't know if I answered it. Or if I did, I don't remember what I answered, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I feel like I am peaceful and tranquil and dead on the inside.
Okay.
And a place that is enjoyable in certain circumstances. But also I like having fun. You know, basically I encompass all human emotions because I'm human. So I'm thinking maybe like a pool, or maybe like the Dead Sea, maybe like the Sea of Tranquility, maybe like the Gulf of Mexico. It's like fun. Bermuda Triangle, you know. I think that's down there. That's down there somewhere.
Bermuda Triangle is famous for not being a calm place.
Yeah, tumultuous, but then also, you know, it's like, you know, my personality is like sometimes I'm introverted and then sometimes I'm extroverted, and that makes me special instead of just being normal. Anyway, my
Ambivert.
my answer is that a special word that people came up with for just being normal?
I don't know.
Okay.
I saw introvert, I saw extrovert, and then I saw ambivert, and people were like, "It's for if you're a little bit of both." And I was like,
it's for 99% of the population. It's for people who don't have some sort of disorder.
Well, no, I mean, extrovert and introvert is just what drains you and what gives you energy.
I think that's completely made up.
Oh. Okay, well, let's get to this water first.
Okay. I think that I'm a tall glass of water. No. I think I can't stop thinking about the fact that we're currently in Japan and I'm thinking about those hot springs.
What?
So,
okay.
like from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and also from like Real World Japan. Yeah, I'm thinking about those.
Nope, just from the video game.
Just from the video game. That's where I know them from because I don't live in Japan. I would say that I'm like one of those lakes, not like a lake that has like a bunch of seaweed and like the water's brown and there's trout everywhere. Like one of those cool lakes where there's really, really expensive houses all around it, and every house has like a dock, and maybe one of the houses has like a big inflatable island that they have out like 20 yards from the shore. And like everyone will go out and take their boats, and like you're not supposed to speed the boats and make wakes, but like some people do. And like the lake is just big enough that if you go into the middle, you can't see, like you can basically not even see the other end. But then in some parts, it's like small enough that it's like, hey, if my buddy lived on the other side of the lake, I could just swim there. And like some people will go like tubing, and some people might go fishing off the side of the boat. Like one of those lakes, like a nice lake.
Okay.
Little bit of everything lake.
A little bit of everything lake.
Yeah. I hate fish and seaweed. But your turn. Your turn. What kind of body of water are you?
I was so one of the other things you can do with this question is you can have other people think what type of body of water you are, right?
Hmm.
So you
True,
go
true,
to
true.
your mom, brother, or you know, if you're on a first date, you ask the person, "What do you think I am?" So I was told I am a lake
Okay.
because
I would say that
because I'm
I'd say that you're a tall glass of water.
oh my goodness. um and like I kind of for similar reasons, like I'm pretty mellow and calm, but like people like I'm warm and inviting, and people like to have fun around me and stuff like that. um but my brother, right, this is part of the reason I was so mind blown with this question as more recently as opposed to whenever how long ago. My brother was described by someone else as a well
Oh.
because it looks like there's not a lot going on, but the deeper you go, the more you find. And I was like, that's a brilliant answer.
Hmm. Okay, so I think an interesting follow-up question would be, would you rather somebody call you a well and imply that there's a depth to your personality, or would you rather someone call you a tall drink of water and be saying that you're attractive?
I mean, I guess it depends on the context.
First date, second date.
No, I lied. It kind of doesn't depend on the context. I want the well.
Okay, so you'd rather somebody look at you and say, you look like there's a lot to you deep down in the surface and you're interesting, as opposed to, I find you extremely attractive.
Yeah, yeah. Because anyone can be attractive. That's not hard.
You don't think that everybody has deeper parts of themselves that require, like,
No, some people are shallow.
okay. Interesting, interesting. Okay. I think
Because,
my answer to that question is that
yeah,
I think whether or not I am a well is independent of somebody thinking I'm a well or not.
eh,
Whereas being attractive is in the eye of the beholder. And so, like, I
right.
don't want someone to say, like, I think you're interesting. Because if I'm not interesting, then they're going to be disappointed. And if I am interesting, then it almost doesn't matter if they think I am or not. Whereas if they think I'm attractive, that matters. Because that's
But
not an
if
objective
they're,
thing.
but if they're only compliment, I mean, a your person is your personality being deep objective.
I think it
We'll
is.
get to that.
Okay.
We'll later. If someone's like, "Oh, I think you're really hot, and that's why I'm hanging out with you," then like that they'll just see another hot person and hang out with them and leave you in the dust
Well,
because
this is in the context of
there's many hot people.
this is in the context of you're on a second date with someone. I think if I'm on a second date with someone and they say, "Hey, by the way, I find you extremely attractive," because that's not something you would say on a first date. Second date, they say, "Hey, I find you extremely attractive." I think that's a desirable thing.
But I think it's at least as equally a like a desirable for the person to actually find you interesting. Some people, right? I get like as to whether if you're considered interesting objectively or not. Shrug, put that away. However, people can find you boring regardless of how interesting you think you are.
Yes.
You know, we're like, oh my gosh, I love Lego and I build them all the time, and she just looks at you like a fish
So
with dead eyes.
the well metaphor, I wasn't taking that as interesting. I was taking that as there are deeper layers to explore here. That can be a bad thing. A psychopath, a serial killer is like a well.
Oh,
They appear like a normal. Oh my god, my neighbor Ray who lives across the street. What a nice man. And then you find out that he was like a serial killer in the 80s or whatever. It's like, okay, so he's a well.
but anyone can be anything with any enough words.
But that's what I would
Oh,
if someone said, I think that you have, deep, you know,
it's like
a
an
deep
onion, Devon.
personality. Yeah. Yeah, no.
But
Like
that's not.
onion does not mean interesting. Onion means that there are layers of
There are layers.
obfuscation or
Not
layers of
obfuscation, just layers.
yeah.
Not everything has to have a good and bad connotation. Some things just are.
Like I don't think that shallow means boring. I think that shallow means like everything a person is on the surface.
No, I would
But
disagree.
that's literally what those words mean.
No, if someone is shallow, it's that they. Sure, there can be stuff on the surface, but also that they only care about surface level things.
Do you know? Have you ever watched South Park?
No,
Do you
not
know?
really. I had like a few episodes.
You know the character Butters?
Yeah.
Butters, he has a shallow personality. Everything that he is on the surface. He says what he thinks, and he thinks what he does for obvious
I know,
reasons.
but no one uses shallow and deep in these contexts. No one's like, you're a shallow person because you say what you think.
I think if I'm using the word shallow in general, like you would usually use that to refer to like a Valley Girl type personality, like OMG, she is so shallow. She's got nothing going on in her head. But if we're using the metaphor of a well, then like a well is like something deep and there's more to explore, whereas a puddle is like, oh, that's all there is. But that's not a bad thing. I love Butters. Butters is a puddle, and a serial killer is a well. I don't think they're objectively good or bad things.
Yeah, and that's my question. That was it.
And that's my answer. So you would also you've been told that you're a lake,
Yeah,
and you would agree with that.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I think lake is a very safe answer for like basically the reason I said is that it seems to encompass a lot of different things. It's also very
Well, but
like neutral answer. It's like I'm not as big as an ocean. You're not an egotist. You're not like the ocean,
I
but you're
think
also
it
not shallow.
depends. Well, it depends on the reasoning they give. Like oh, I'm a lake because I don't have a lot of I don't show a lot of extreme emotions like a lake because there's no like giant waves or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you're warm and inviting, so people like to hang out with you, like you described earlier, people using you to swim through or to fish in or whatever. I think your distinction on the type of lake of like seaweed and fish versus nice like house side lake is interesting. But when I had to, my brother was like, "Well, what do you think I am?" And I was like, "Dang, well's such a good answer." So then naturally, I was like, "Okay, if I can't use that though, I would say like a channel or a fjord." And you just got to get creative with your bodies of water.
Mm. Would you say that like if we go speed dating again, would you
Right.
ask
Oh,
this
100%.
question? Okay. Interesting.
I think it's such a funny little thing.
Hmm. I think this might be a good time to break the illusion and tell people that we're recording this before our
Whoa,
January speed
whoa,
dating.
whoa,
Ah.
whoa,
I don't know about that.
whoa.
Anyway, bodies of water are interesting.
Yeah.
When I think bodies of water, sometimes I might think of like the ocean and like, the Marianas Trench, the biggest, deepest part of the sea.
Right.
A lot
Okay.
of lot of weird fish down there.
Yes.
Some animals and stuff that like we don't know that are down there.
Sure. The Kraken.
Yeah, like icebergs.
Right.
How like
They're
only the tip is above the water.
yes. The real part, the meat and potatoes of the iceberg, is under the water
Yes,
to
you
make
can
a stew.
exactly. You can call meat and potatoes the iceberg of soup. Anyway, that's my transition. So
Okay.
I've been thinking a lot about lots of stuff. Okay,
Right.
I think that people's personalities fluctuate a lot more than they might consciously be aware of. I think that we are very we're very wishy-washy people. We're a big old soup of chemicals and electricity and bacteria, and we're just kind of sloshing around in our meat mech as our skeleton, as our brain, as our soul, as our mind. Just a bunch of weird stuff going on.
Okay.
Have you? And I'm going to come up with some explanations and examples, but I want to get your unbiased answer at first. Have you ever heard something to the effect of like an inner voice, like what people might describe as like a conscience? Or have you ever had an internal struggle with yourself? Not like, oh, I'm struggling with a moral question, but like you shouldn't do something, but then you do it anyway, and you're like, why did I do that? It's almost like you go on like autopilot, and there's something in control that's not you, either for good things or bad things.
Yes and no. I am not totally 100% sure what you're trying to describe. Like, I've had times where, like, my emotions got so intense that I acted in certain ways, but it sounds like that's not what you're saying
So I'm
or
thinking
asking.
more in terms of like addiction.
Mm.
So for me, I've been on diets and like trying to lose weight and stuff like that for like years of my life. And
Mm.
I'll be like, okay, I'm on my diet. I can't eat anything bad, or I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. And then 5 minutes later, I'll like see a slice of cake, and I'll be like, okay, I've now entered into I want the cake mode, but I know it's wrong, so I have to like sneak around. I have to be like, no one's allowed to see me take the cake because I'm on a diet. So I need to take it and then eat it really fast and then discard the evidence, and then I'll be happy because I'll have my cake. And then like I'll do that, and then I'll be
Uh-huh.
done, and then I'll have post cake clarity, and I'll be like, why did I do that? I didn't want to do that.
Mm.
And so it kind of seems like there was like another me in there that like took control, because my conscious, my higher level thinking self is like, I don't want to do this. But then it just like happens, and I'm like, that literally feels like it wasn't me in control. And I've heard other people talk about that in terms of like other kinds of addiction, or even like people who are like violent or like have like anger issues. They'll just be like, yeah, I don't know why that happens, because like I end up just doing things that I don't want to do. Like, where does that come from? Or even people who will like drink a lot, or I'll say drink often, not drink a lot. They'd be like, yeah, I'm like a different person than I'm when I'm drunk. It's like a different version of me comes out to the surface.
Mm.
Have you experienced things like that?
So, I have similar things with food sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, there's no leftovers in the house. I don't want to make anything, but it's like, you know, 11 o'clock at night or something, and it's like, okay, I'll get a frozen pizza or whatever, chuck that in the oven, but then I have to hide the evidence. No one can know I ate the frozen pizza because I'm eating a pizza at 11 p.m. So then you like put the cardboard box at the bottom of the recycling, you fold up the plastic, push it down, then you use a paper towel, wipe yourself with it, crumple it up, put that over the plastic. You wash all your dishes really well, you make sure you open and close everything really quiet, and then you eat the pizza, and then you are like, that was a lot of effort for now feeling shameful. Like I've just done something wrong and bad. Because, well, you shouldn't be eating a pizza at 11 p.m. and you should be asleep or whatever, or you should just have glasses of water to fill you up. And then you're just like, okay, now I have to like deal with this, and you're just like, ugh. Which I think yeah, and then you get a weirder relationship with food every day that passes.
So what I'm hearing is the answer yes.
Yeah, I've never felt like it was different me, though, so much as, like, resigning myself to, like, just letting my inhibitions take over, or, like, just being, like, consciously right here, all, you know, I want to lose weight, I don't want to have a bad diet, blah, blah, blah. And then part of my brain goes, but we're hungry and it's late at night and there's not a ton of options. So this is what we came up with. And I go, yeah, okay,
But
whatever.
literally what you just described is as if you're having a conversation with two people. You literally refer to yourself as we.
Oh, that's just British speak.
No.
You know, the royal we love the king, the queen.
Oh gosh. So I've heard other people use basically the same sort of idea, again, to refer to either addiction or anger issues or, being intoxicated. And again, even like the idea of Jiminy Cricket, the conscience, it's like it's talking to you. It's a different voice in your head that's like telling you to not do something. Or if, people who have like other like weird issues, it's like, yeah, there's a voice in my head telling me to do bad things. From what we sort of understand scientifically, and there's always going to be the discussion between like the difference between your brain and your mind, because like we have literally no idea how the mind works.
We don't even know that the mind is in the brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Technically speaking.
One of the more interesting things that I found recently, and this is totally just like me skimming over an article that's probably just pop science, but they found that basically every organ in your body has the same sort of cells that make up your brain. And the one that has the most of these kinds of cells is your stomach. And so the idea is that theoretically, like, if you take one of your other organs, it could function as a less efficient brain as far as thinking goes. But the ones that's closest to your brain is your stomach. And it's like, oh, maybe that's what a gut feeling is. Maybe all of your organs are involved in thinking. And because your stomach is second in command, we sometimes get gut feelings. Like, it's almost as if a thought is coming from your stomach.
I guess. Shrug.
I found this mind-blowing when I read it.
I would be curious for more research. It is interesting, but I don't know. However, if you listen to previous episodes, and I described when I tried to steal something and then I didn't, and I got this pain in my stomach, or like it was a knotted or upside down or whatever. It's like, maybe that's why. Is because your brain is like, we're sending the order not to, and then your stomach gets it and further tells your body. I don't know.
So have you ever heard people talking about like, oh, my monkey brain wanted this, or my lizard brain did this? Oh yeah, the lizard
brain. Yeah. So 100%.
Yes, that's because the structure of our brain is basically into multiple parts. So like there's the brain stem, and then there's the tiny little part right above that, and then like it's almost like there's a slightly like an onion almost of different layers of brain. And it's like our smallest amount of brain looks the same as a lizard. And then the next size above that looks like a monkey. And then the bigger brain is like a person or a dolphin. And so it's almost like the brain is iterating or growing off of older, steps in the evolutionary chain. And so it's like, oh, there are parts of the brain that are literally hundreds of millions of years old. And so it's like, okay, those important? Obviously they're important, but like those vestigial parts,
remnants,
vestigial structures that exist for very basic thoughts. Maybe they have a difficulty interacting with the more conscious thinking human sapient parts of our bigger brain, which is why we sometimes get like, oh, lizard brain tells me eat the food, whereas conscious human brain is like, I have long-term thinking, and so I'm not going to eat the food because I want to lose weight, because losing weight will actually cause me to feel better and to live longer and give me more energy. But then lizard brain is like, me see sweet thing, me want food. Have you experienced this? heard other people talk about this, described it this way, seen it.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I have used lizard brain in conversation.
right, right, right.
Um, it is weird because it does feel like they're at odds, but I don't think they would be like opponents per se. You know, it's just like I think part of the thing is just like it's just a more baser animal instinct. And
But
then you have your human brain. It's like, well, actually, all this stuff. But then actually, we live in a society. Lizard brain wasn't meant for Oreos and stuff.
correct.
Is my Oreos are so crazy. Like I don't really eat Oreos.
I love Oreos.
But there was a little trend where for Christmas we would get Oreos. And this past year or whatever, I didn't get Oreos for Christmas. And part of me was like, what is this? How has this happened? And I was very disappointed, and and then stopped caring about it a few minutes later.
Have you seen the pattern-seeking brains meme?
Maybe. I don't think I've heard it called like that.
It's basically, it's a 4-panel meme, and it shows something, and then it's like, me just looking at something, and it's like my pattern-seeking brain, and then it'll show like, oh, it was the meme lost the whole time, or oh, it was like the woman on the couch surrounded by the black eyes meme, or like, oh, it was a soy jack, or like, oh, it was a this, it was a that. Like the inability to look at something totally normal and not see it as a pattern, because human brains are really good at finding patterns. Human brains are really good at finding faces. Human brains are really good at gripping onto things, stuff like that. That's why we get addicted real easy. Basically, it's widely understood and almost anthropomorphized how different aspects of our brain works into things like, the lizard brain or Jiminy Cricket. Right. You're following me. You're following along. So this is also why I really kind of hate the, I'll say anthropomorphization again of like the inside out emotions. Because I don't think that we are a human brain that is then, oh, our different emotions want different things. I think that we are a meshy of so many disparate elements that evolved millions of years apart for different reasons, that it's almost like some of these emotions and feelings are things that earthworms needed to survive, and then some of these are things that only humans experience. And so to put those, to put planning and disgust on the same level of piloting your inside out brain as like anger, I think is wrong.
So what I'm hearing is you don't think dogs can be happy, you monster.
No, dogs can clearly be happiness is probably the most based emotion. We can observe like serotonin being released in like reptiles, I think. Like very basic old animal creatures have like the same serotonin processes that humans do.
I think disgust is kind of base.
Have you ever seen I've seen dogs eat poop.
Yeah, I've also seen dogs eat something and then spit it out and go bleh and shake their head.
I've seen my understanding is that disgust is one of the newer emotions.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just the word disgust, but like I don't. Yeah, I feel like I see things in like my dogs where they're just like, I am going to like this, and then they do the thing, and it's like, I didn't like this actually. Which I guess it's just being wrong, but like, I don't know. What gross? A shrug.
Well, I think that what is grossness? Grossness is telling us to avoid things. Why should we avoid things? Because those things could be dangerous, but not in a like this thing will bite me danger, but in a this thing has bacteria danger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, why do we not like dead bodies? Because there's probably bacteria growing in them, or maybe they were sick and so we could get the sickness if we were around them. Why don't we like, swamps and still water and things that smell like they're rotting? Because bacteria. Like, that kind of disgust is a very, very complicated emotion that sort of only exists in communities.
I think you can be disgusted by a swamp because it's a part of the fear of the unknown. You're like,
Well, then that's
well, I
fear.
don't know
That's not
what this
disgust.
is. Well, sure, but then it's just a subcategory of fear.
But I don't.
We'll label all of them, dang it.
Oh, okay. Again, it doesn't matter if I'm right. The point is that I'm like creating a distinction between something like the basic happiness that
Oh, sure,
a fish
sure.
that,
Sorry, I
that
lost the thread.
we know that like fishes can feel, and then something like disgust, which is really only seen in higher life forms.
So anyway,
I'm sure that you're aware of split brain cases.
uh, yeah.
Left brain, right brain stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right hemisphere, left hemisphere, creative versus math versus right side of the brain controls the left side of your body.
Yes. So that part is true. The whole like one side of the brain is creative and the other side is math focused. That's completely false, made up, not real. But the left side of your brain does control the right side of your body, and the right side of your brain does control the left side of your body. And there's this little sliver that connects the two hemispheres. And there have been cases where that's either been severed for like by an accident or for whatever reasons it like cures seizures. And so we've done there's like legit medical reasons to sever it. And when that happens, it almost appears like people have two consciousnesses. Because like you can ask, like they find it hard to like coordinate their hands. Or there's been these experiments where like, I'm going to show your left eye something. And then I'm going to ask you to draw it with your right hand, and you can't because the right side of your brain didn't see it. Oh my God. Right? You heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that a lot of that has also been discredited, and that there's other sort of like reasons for the lack of communication. Because again, as I was kind of talking about earlier, like your whole body is connected in many ways, and so it's more like it's harder to process as opposed to like there are now two yous inside your body. Which one is the real you? Like it just almost doesn't work that way. That's a very like pop science extremist way of looking at how the brain works.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that there are many yous inside you, and I think one of them that we might label as like the real you would be like the deep thinking, inner monologue, thinking can plan, is sort of like looking around and making logical decisions based on things as opposed to like reacting to things or having gut feelings or like being a slave to your emotions, right? Like there's the deep thinking, I want to do this based on my past experiences. I can calculate that to do it, I will have to do X, Y, or Z thing to accomplish it. I will do that. Here's my plan. And then when the time comes, you have to do it. Like right now, I have this deep, deep desire. There's this old video game I played when I was a kid that I really want to go back and play. I'm getting this like nostalgic kick for it. But I also know that I have a deadline. I'm trying to finish writing this draft of my book because I have people who are waiting to read it. And so I'm telling myself, I need to finish the draft of my book before I can go play that video game. But I can't just sit down and write my book because I also have to release YouTube videos. And so I need to write the book and then make a YouTube video. And I know it's going to take like 2 or 3 weeks, but then I'll finally be able to sit down and play the video game. And that's sort of the rational, deeper thinking part. That's the well part of my brain as opposed to the puddle part of my brain, Eric. That is capable of having that sort of more conscious thought. But then there's the animal instinct lobster part of my brain that's just like, go do fun stuff. Go, like, eat pizza and, like, roll around in the mud, because that's awesome. Go play some video games. Who cares about work and money? Just, like, go skydiving.
You want to go skydiving?
No, I'd hate that, but, like, I was reading a book, and the character brought up, like, the idea of, like, rolling down a hill. And I was thinking, I'm like, when I was a kid, I used to roll down hills all the time. And that's, like, terrifying. There could have been just like rocks on the hill. Like you could just whack your head on a rock and just like die. Like I used to roll down hills all the time. I don't know if I'd like let my child roll down a hill.
Bruh. You're gonna read out to your child and the bitch was dead, but you won't let them roll down a hill. Get out of here.
Yeah, that's it's just like it's a weird thing where I'm like I did this all the time as a kid, and now I'm like as an adult I'm like I can't believe I will never let children do that, which is obviously irrational.
No,
But yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I haven't rolled down a hill in a while. Maybe we should go rolling down hills, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I rolled down a hill as a
Yeah.
child, I looked at the hill and was like, cool, there's no rocks.
But what like sometimes the grass can hold them. I think also if you stick your
Oh,
hands
sure.
out, if you like stick your hands out like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like around your ears or like your eyes, then like you go faster, and so also that would kind of cushion your head. So like maybe that's a little safer. Anyway,
Anyway.
anyway, anyway. So I was doing some thinking. So I've been coming to this conclusion of the ever since Inside Out 2 came out a few months ago. I've just been like I've always hated this depiction of emotions. Why is that? And I think we actually talked about
Hmm.
split brain cases on a previous episode, or like left right brain stuff. And so I've been thinking about that, and then I read the gut bacteria brain thinking part thing. And so I've been thinking about like, okay, well, what are humans? What is consciousness? What is whatever? And I'm thinking about it, and I'm just having that in the back of my mind. And as I'm going through different phases of like I'm on a diet, and then I'm like I'm not on a diet. I'm gonna gorge myself like a piggy. I'm also thinking about like why do I act this way? Why do I have like I know what I have to do, but I don't have the strength to do it, right? Like why do things work this way? What's going on in our little heads? Completely unrelated to everything we just talked about. I want to ask you a question. Are you ready? You ready for the
Okay.
question?
Yeah.
All right. Now I know that we don't have the same religious beliefs, but
This is true.
what is your understanding of the idea of prayer?
The idea of
What
prayer.
is
I
prayer?
mean, prayer is when you think, well, it's when you, like, consciously choose to meditate or so and reflect or request. It depends a little bit on how you want to do it, right? If you believe there's like a god or whatever, you pray by like in your mind or out loud saying whatever it is, right? You can pray that like I hope that my dog gets better, or it can be like, hey god, I'm just checking in and why is my life so hard? um, yeah, it's usually just like a time to be introspective and question the universe, I guess.
Yes.
So,
So, even non-Christian religions, like Eastern religions, also have the concept of like praying to your ancestors, or like praying
mm-hmm,
to like a spirit or something, right? Like this idea of like I'm either going to out loud talk to something that's like not there, or in my head, which in that you said thinking or out loud, so I'm guessing when you said thinking, what you meant is like using an internal monologue, right?
yeah,
Like using
yeah,
your inner
yeah, yeah, yeah,
voice to think the
yeah, yeah,
words that
yeah,
you would say out loud.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
To say things and like think about things, and like you said, like okay, I want my dog to get better, or I'm like my life really sucks right now, what's going on, god, why is it like this?
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of studies that show that like people who pray for things, like basically that like prayer works, that like when you pray for things it is more likely to happen, which is also true of what more secularly would be called manifesting. I'm
Yes, I
sure
was just about to say they're
I,
manifesting it.
yes, I'm sure you've heard that like, oh, I have a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard it says like I want to buy a car. And so if I look at the whiteboard every day, then it's more likely for me to remember to do the things that will get me to buy the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's like studies that show that this kind of thing works. Correct?
I guess I haven't seen them.
Okay. Well, the general idea is that like it works and that people do it, and you basically have the both sides. One side's like, okay, so what you're doing is praying, but you're not calling it praying because you want to be special, and then the other side's like, oh, these people think they're praying to a god. All they're doing is really manifesting. They just think there's a god. Either way, this thing, whatever it is, works, right?
Sure.
So me as someone who does believe in God, I've always questioned the concept of prayer. Because I'm like, okay, if God knows everything, if God can always read my thoughts, then why would I pray? Why would I stop and I'm going to do the sign of the cross and I'm going to say, like, okay, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, hi, God, what's up? You know, I want to pray for my mommy and my daddy, and I want to have good, you know, I hope I do well on my test tomorrow, and I hope that grandma and grandpa are up in heaven, right? Like, what is the point? What's the function of doing that if God can read your thoughts? If God knows everything, if he already knows what you want, right? Why do you need to ask for it? Or obviously, like, you know, bad things happen to good people, so, you know, praying for it. Like right now, oh, I pray that the earthquake doesn't open up and eat my house, but then it happens anyway, and I'm like, well, I prayed for it. Why didn't it save me? So I've always wondered, like, what is the point? Is there one? And if so, what am I missing? Do you see my struggle here?
I think so.
Have you had similar thoughts? Again, I know that you don't necessarily like believe in
No.
God and pray yourself, but have you had the same, like, yeah, why do Christians pray if they think that God can just read their mind anyway?
Well, I think there's two things. My immediate thing is, like, you're starting a conversation. You wouldn't go up to a stranger and be like, will you make my house not on fire tomorrow? They'd be like, hi, hello. That's rude. So it's about manners.
You have to be polite to God for him to care. God, you think God?
Oh, you have to
God
be
cares
polite
if you're
to be
polite.
polite.
God cares if
Yeah,
you're polite.
I mean, maybe he cares if you're wearing two different pieces of cloth at once.
Teehee.
But there's also I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say some religions, which I can't confidently say because I was raised a certain way and then I stuck with it for a bit and then I didn't, and I didn't really look into anyone else's religion.
Yeah.
But you know, the gods have different interpretations. Like the Catholics say he's like omniscient and omnipotent, so like he's all knowing and all powerful. Yes. But like some religions, maybe he's all powerful but not all knowing. In that case, you know, that's why you have to pray, because he can't know everything. He's all powerful or whatever. But also, if you want to say that he is omniscient, then it's like, you know, he can know everything about you and all of your thoughts, but maybe doesn't know what is the most important. So then you know, that's what prayer is that you clarify that for. And then, like, the other thing, now we're on to a third thing, is that it's not about God, it's about you. And prayer is like you know, you're praying to God, let's say, but it's about you admitting to yourself, like, what is the thing that you want help in or thinking about the most, whatever the thing is, you know. And so then you come to terms with yourself a little bit better in the moments and stuff.
So everything you just said, I feel like I didn't comprehend until a few weeks ago. It took me 30 years to kind of put all of that together in a I can lay this out in an ABCD fashion. And it's basically exactly what you said, which is we are complicated. And so when you take the time and the effort to think, to use the human, logical, rational, bigger part of your brain, and you think and you specify in words what you want, that is clarifying, because I think you're a big messy soup of lizard brain and human brain. And so when you're doing the prayer part, your human brain is coming to the surface and saying, this is my will. I'm using this moment right now, this time, to specify the will of the most advanced, conscious, human, best thinking part of myself, to specify what I actually want. So when I'm thinking like, okay, well, I know I want to be on a diet, but then I go and eat the cake. The prayer part is like when you pray, you're specifically in this state where only the human part of you is there and the lizard part isn't. You're like breaking through to the surface almost. And like you said, it's like, oh, well, if you pray for something, but it doesn't have, God's not a genie. It's like, right, but you're clarifying for yourself. You're making it clear to yourself which one is your actual will, the thing you actually want. So like again, even though I don't understand it, I do pray every night. And I have like basically since I was like, I think I was probably like 11 or 12 when I was like, I should start praying every night. And then I did. And so I have always done that. And 99% of the time, it's literally a checklist. So, like, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Hey, God, I pray for this and this and this and this and this, the end. And it's like, it's never like wishes. It's more like, I hope that this person is doing better with their struggles. And I hope that this person is doing this. And I hope this person's okay. Like, that's the kind of stuff that, like, I do a checklist with, like, certain people and, like, certain events that are going on. And then I say, okay, good night. And in doing this, and again, having all these thoughts that just kind of circle around in my brain for like months at a time, it just sort of clicked. And I was like, this whole human brains are soupy stuff, and this whole human and lobster part, and this whole lizard and monkey part, and this whole split brain, stomach, gut feeling part. When you take that time to manifest or to pray or whatever, you're specifying the things that are most important to the highest developed part of you. And if I look back on the trend of those things that I pray for, those are clearly the things I care about the most. But a lot of those things aren't things that I can actively deal with. Like, typically the things that I personally pray for are like, hey, I hope this person I haven't seen in 10 years is doing okay. That's not something that in my day-to-day life actively will affect me, which is in my previous thoughts on this topic is like, well, yeah, I can't change it, so I need to ask God to help. Things I can change are up to me. And now I'm like, no, the reason, because God's not a genie, but the reason that people ask God for help in doing things is because maybe they do need to tell themselves what their things are, right? Like, yeah, if I ask God, like, God, please help me lose weight, it doesn't work like that because God's not a genie. But if I ask God to lose weight, then maybe during my daytime times when the lizard brain is there, I'll remember that that's what I truly want, and I'll just be more high thinking.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I these are big thoughts. I think I came to these conclusions in like mid December of 2024. I was just like, wait, oh my, like, I've just like sort of logicked, reasoned, and like thought myself into like understanding this thing that clearly people thousands of years ago across all different cultures across the entire world have like someone knew this. People knew this. And it's kind of one of the reasons I think that like traditions are extremely important, because it's like I've been praying since I was 12, not knowing why and sort of questioning it and like sort of actively thinking it didn't work and was dumb. But in doing it for that long and then understanding why it works and why you do it, I'm like, well, I sure am glad that I have been doing this whole time, even though I don't understand like what it's for. And so, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm like, wow, I solved praying. New YouTube video.
Sure.
I solved praying with an overblown high contrast or low contrast picture of Jesus in the thumbnail. So that's been on my mind, and I've been wanting to talk about that because I'm like, this is like do people know about this? And obviously the answer is yes, but at the same time, I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, some people will, some people won't.
Yeah, crazy
life. I think one of the things, and just in this whole kind of talk on the brain, because I have less thoughts on the praying thing.
Mm-hmm.
You do you. I'm sorry. I just remembered the previous episode.
I don't remember.
And you hate people saying you do you.
Oh yeah.
And now I'm saying it for praying. Anyway, that's a joke for me, I guess.
Joke's on you.
In the way that your emotions help you figure out your decision-making process, I think your lizard brain is also part of that. Like, you've been talking about, like, how there's competing interests and, like, they're not you and it isn't you, but I think it's all you, man. And the lizard brain is just informing part of the other parts of your brain of, like, this is a thing we want.
Well, and
Or a thing that looks good, and then you have to make your decisions on that. But it's not a competing thing, it's just like another part of you that you have to figure out how to synthesize within your life.
well, to that I would say that again, you use the word we to refer to the different parts of your brain. And I think a lot of people
British
a
royalisms.
lot of people, well, that's the royal we, but that's also not how that works. People will be like, oh, I need like, I need to like smoke pot, or I need like 2 drinks to like feel normal. And that sort of
Mm,
wipes away, different layers of their brain. Like people will purposefully turn off some of those thoughts in order to achieve certain goals.
sure. But you can also just figure out how to
Basically, I don't
live your life so you don't need to do that.
I don't think that like just because something's natural means that it's like good. Like, oh well, humans have lobster brains and lizard brains and monkey brains, so like you should listen to them. I'm like, well, should you?
Well, there's a difference between listening to them and acting on them. You know?
What
Just
is the
because you
difference? If you shouldn't act on it, then why is it there to listen to?
to inform you,
Of
to
what?
just point
Of
something out of whatever the thing is, and in this case we'll use cake.
mm-hmm. You need to be constantly reminded for your entire life that cake is high in calories and thus will give you energy.
I guess so.
I don't think so.
I think there's a lot of things that the brain does, and there's a lot of compartments it has, and we know this from science and studying. You know
Mm-hmm.
that the amygdala is like
The
controls
fear.
your emotions and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't. It is where the vast majority of your emotions come
That's where
from.
your fear comes from.
Um, no emotions. I
Fear.
took a psych class, unless they updated it in the last
Okay.
10 years, which maybe they did.
Maybe it's other
It's just
emotions.
all of your emotions.
Okay, maybe it is. I might be wrong.
Um, but like the hippocampus is for your past memories, your long term, short term, whatever, and the hypothalamus controls your your basic desires for like food, shelter, water type things. And I think there's just like a lot of different things that the brain does, and we're just like, it's just the magic organ that does everything. And it's like, yeah, sure, but also, as magical as it is, it's also not that complex in a way. Like, it's still a simple, not, I don't want to like downplay or overplay, but like, it's also still a brain, you know? Like, our heart pumps blood, and that's all it does. And then we're like, well, obviously the brain can do all of these things with no issues or problems. It's like, well, no. Maybe we need the lizard brain because maybe we would forget cake is good and would give us energy if we need it.
See, I have the exact opposite thing, right? Like we everything evolved randomly, and then it's like, oh, good mutation happens, bad mutation, the thing dies. But sometimes bad mutations don't show up until later, right? Like Alzheimer's doesn't affect you until well after you've like bred and raised your children. And so that's why it's not been like evolved out of the species, because it doesn't affect breeding and child rearing, and so it's just always going to be there. Um, and we're just like, I people tend to think of brains like computers, but brains
Mm-hmm.
aren't computers. They're mushes of meat and water and electricity. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like almost it almost doesn't function. It almost like doesn't make any sense how it works, and it's so fragile that like any, it's
Yes.
like, oh, if a pregnant woman drinks, then like it can totally mess up the baby, right? It's like, a couple drops of chemicals inside of the mother when the fetus is developing can like completely change the aspect of like the way the brain develops and have drastic consequences. Okay, so what if like a couple drops of this, that, or the other thing while you were developing and I was developing, even if we have 99% on the surface seem to function the same? What if there's actually drastic differences in our brains because of like how we were developed, or then like even when we were children, how our brains developed with the foods we ate or the things we drank or the things we did. People are looking
Mm-hmm.
at like, oh, exercise when you're young is really important for brain development, or like, obviously if you start like drinking or smoking when you're like 14, that's really bad, which is why the drinking age is so high.
Mm-hmm.
um I think that we're like a stack of precarious Jenga blocks that just kind of happen to fall. Like you drop a Jenga tower off a cliff and it reaches the bottom and they explode everywhere, but then like five of them happen to stack on top of each other, and that's our brain. And so it wasn't put there on purpose, and it wasn't like stacked in a way that made it structurally sound. They just happened to kind of land in a pile, and then basically any movement will topple the whole thing over. And we're dependent on the fact that that happened by chance, and then we're dependent on it not being blown over.
Yeah, yes and no. I think I overall agree. Actually, I would. Part of me wants to disagree with the randomness aspect, but mutations are random. But over the course of the incredible amount of time that not only humans have lived, but also life has lived, there is a trend of things uh on what does get passed through and what doesn't. But I mean, I feel like that is kind of agreeing with my previous point of like the brain is just there, and I think we overestimate its capabilities. And it's like, no, that why do you think woodpeckers wrap their tongues around their brain as a protective force when they drill into trees? It's so it don't get concussed and stuff, because it's a fragile slop
Yeah,
soup even.
we're all fragile slops, and our brains are flat, fragile slops, and we don't understand our brains or even like the connection to our minds. Some people don't even believe in minds. Some people, I know that we've kind of like I've avoided like even mentioning this, but like some people don't have internal monologues, which just confuses me. But that's fine. We don't
Yeah,
need to go into that.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm very, I
Hey,
spend a lot of time like, wow, things are so precarious, and I don't understand the most basic aspects of like what I am.
yeah.
And that's why I think it's super important to like, I think I mentioned last episode, we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Mm.
It's like,
Well,
we should do things. People tell us that things work, and even if we don't understand it, we should do it. And then maybe we'll one day discover for ourselves why it works, and then we'll be part of the people who then tell other people to do it.
you want to get real freaked out?
Yes, I guess. We're this far in.
You let's just say that your like mind and brain are the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or one houses the other, or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Regardless, you have been wondering what you are. Your brain was like, let's send some electricity to figure out what we are.
Yeah, it's
And here you
creepy.
are. And now you're thinking about what you are when no other species, as far as we know, really has to do that. And now you're getting all meta about it. And then I had the thought that we should make it meta.
Yeah, it's
And it just
it's
goes.
crazy. We were in high school when I first read like the internet post. Someone was like, "Yo, the brain named itself the brain. The brain's the only
Yeah.
thing that's ever named itself." And that sent me on like a spiral. And I remember like I told my girlfriend that, and she's just like, "That's stupid." And I'm like, "Well, it confuses me."
Lols.
But yeah,
And yet at the
messes
same
me
time,
up.
we aren't built for Oreos. And I'll stand by that, as delicious as they are.
No, have you ever heard the thing that like, the amount of like nacho power in a single Dorito would like kill a Victorian child?
Lols.
Which has since like expanded out to just like people saying like, oh, this, X, Y, or Z thing would kill a
A
Victorian child.
Twinkie.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
You've experienced more sugar in a single Twinkie than, people 400 years ago would ever experience their entire lives.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, I saw in the similar vein of like present and past things being weird. I don't know how true it is because it was on the internet and they can always lie. And could I have clicked on the link? Maybe. But it was like the amount of stress that we have today would have put the average person has the average person in today's modern times. The amount of stress they had would have put them in an asylum back in the day because that much stress would have like considered you to have hysteria or something.
Yeah. And I blame the internets and the social medias for the anxiety disorders that the youngins have. I say that like half in jest because like genuinely like think about like politics, right? It's like back before the internet, you may have gotten the newspaper once a week, and whatever the journalist in that newspaper thought was important enough to put on the front page about what had happened that week was like all you knew, and that's if you chose to read it. Whereas now the president is tweeting things.
Well, now
and so
we skipping jumps.
We know every single thing that is happening every single day. There's a little thing that's like, this is what happened in Washington today. And not only that, there's speculation. This is what might be happening behind closed doors. We heard a leaked rumor of a thing that a person who's close to the president might have said this. And so now we have like, we know everything that's going on. Everything that's going on is scary. There might be 12 steps involved. We're only on step 6, so like we don't even know the outcome, but we're worrying about what the outcome might be. And then there's even things that like we're on step 0 because it hasn't happened yet. And that's what causes anxiety.
Whoa. But you skipped TVs and stuff. So shame.
Well, yeah, I'm again, you said like, it would have put you in an asylum back in the day. It's like, yeah. But this is only 100 years ago.
Yeah.
1925, people listen to the radio maybe.
Well, and even in I don't know when TVs came out. Let's say
60s,
40s, 50s, 60s. It was even then. You still got a bombardment of news and new information compared to the newspaper, but then it was like curated and reviewed, and people had to edit it and stuff. Some of it was still trash, I'm sure, but it was at least thought about.
Yeah, there wasn't the 24-hour news cycle, which is what people are like, oh, when CNN came out as like, we are only going to talk about the news and politics, as opposed to like previously there was ABC News and Fox News, and those were like, it was a news block that happened once during the day between television programs. CNN came out and it was like, we're just the news all day, every day. And then like 9/11 happened and it was like, oh, we need constant updates all the time. That's the 24-hour news cycle, which has since become Twitter, which is the every millisecond of every day, there's more stuff going on than you can possibly comprehend. Like the fact that me, you, and again, we're kind of giving away the fact that like this is recorded before it's coming out. We've all been talking about the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, resigned. And so there's like a lot of like discussion in that country about like, oh, it's not just like, oh, I wonder who's going to win the election. It's like, oh, I wonder like on what date he's going to actually step down, and then who's going to be appointed, and then how long that person's going to be in power. People are talking about maybe there's going to be a vote of no confidence, which will force an early election as opposed to waiting for the election to happen. Like we're sitting here having multi-hour long discussions over texts about the politics of a country we don't even live in, that if we just waited 3 months, we would know the answer, but instead we're discussing the possibilities of what might happen for something that doesn't affect us, and also probably in the long history of like Canada won't even end up mattering. Like 6 months from now, they're going to have a prime minister and a government, And all of us sitting here and pontificating about what we think will happen doesn't matter, because what will happen will happen.
It really makes you think about the cavemen and their 150-person clan.
Yeah.
And that was it. 151, get out. Shouldn't have had that baby, or someone needed to die or something.
Yeah, or, I know that there's I forget the exact number, it may have been that, but it's like the amount of people that you can actually have meaningful relationships with is...
I think it is 150.
Yeah, it was something like
Right,
150 to 300, something like that. But yeah, it's...
I don't even think it's to 300.
Well, so I think, for whatever reason, it might be just through like television or something, but in my head I'm like, I think that like the maximum number for a reasonable wedding is like 300.
Well, that's if you invite the whole village or whatever.
No, I just mean like my family. If I'm thinking like how many people would come to like my wedding, I'm like, I think I'd have to cap it at 300.
Oh. Your wedding's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, haha. Just need to find the female.
Hey, you can always marry a fictional character or a cardboard cutout. If you can't find 150 people to have deep, meaningful connections with, you can make them. This is a joke.
Okay. I'm like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna have to. I don't know how to unpack that one. Yeah, so it's just, these last couple topics we've talked about, these episodes are things I've been thinking, and I'm like, these are circumstances where I have thought about things for a very long time that a lot of people innately understand. And I don't want to get across the notion that I don't innately understand, like, why is lying wrong? Why do people, think about the things that matter to them, right? I do innately understand these things. I do these things, but I want to move, beyond the I innately understand these things, and I want to consciously understand them. And I want to know them, because my thing, and I think this all comes down to me being, at heart, I'm a writer or a storyteller. And it's like, if I don't understand why I do things in real life, I won't be able to create the facsimile of a fictional character doing things reasonably in a fictional story. I need to almost understand how humans work. If I can understand 10% of why humans work, then I can create a fake human with enough convincing realness to be a captivating fictional character. Because if they're 10% real, based on the 10% that I understand of real humans, then they'll come off as real in my stories.
That's very admirable, and I think people have written successful stories with less effort and with less understanding.
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of story you're telling. I don't think that The Very Hungry Caterpillar requires a deep understanding of, why we pray. But I think
I don't know,
in some stories too. Like,
did you ever read The Hungry Caterpillar? It gets deep.
Unironically, I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, I think one of my goals for this year might be that I want to write a picture book, which would require me to like make illustrations, paintings.
Okay.
I want to turn Harold the Christmas Snow Pig into a children's picture book.
Oh no!
They're like genuinely. And I'm like, maybe I want to have that ready for this coming Christmas, but that would require a lot of like painting
That's
effort
a lot of work
for me. Yeah, because it would have to. I'm thinking like, how many pages is a picture book, and then maybe one painting can be both pages, like the left and right page.
Yeah.
But still, that's probably like minimum 14 paintings, right? Like, I'll go break up my copy of the Polar Express. I'll see how many pages that is.
I think there's like 20 pages in a children's book.
Yeah, so I'll have to maybe I'll write it first and see how few pages I can tell the story in.
Yeah.
I'm imagining this like overhead shot of like a row of houses, and it's snowing, and there's like some trees off to the left, and there's the snowman in the yard, and like you just kind of see like from like an overhead perspective, tilted down, you see like the pig approaching the snowman, and like that page has all of the dialogue between the pig and the snowman.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to figure out the ending, though, because the children's book of Harold the Christmas Snow Pig ending with
it's gonna end with
gory pig spinning over a fire as his friends watch on.
It will end with a bronzed pig with an apple in his mouth impaled spinning over a fire, and in the background will be a little caterpillar and a snowman like drinking hot cocoa watching it. Like that's how the story will end.
That's so messed up.
Well,
I was a parent,
you gotta ask the question, like, is this actually for kids, or is it a novelty story based on, the concept of a picture book for kids? But that is something I want to do. I guess I gotta pray for and manifest my ability to paint such a thing. Because I talked a few episodes ago about, like, I enjoy painting. I was painting a Christmas present. I enjoy painting. So maybe that's something I'll have to do more.
That was a long time ago. But yeah, I remember it.
That was months ago, yeah. Cough, cough.
Why do you keep doing this?
We can't lie, Eric. If we lie to our audience, we're creating a false reality for them to live in.
You keep on this. These are going to be the most confusing episodes for people.
Why? Because they'll know that we're recording this in January?
Well, it's also the most we've ever had a consistent through line.
Between multiple episodes? Because we're recording them back to back to back?
Devin! Goodbye, everybody. I hope you take care of your animals and yourselves.
Bye.